Hello to all my subscribers and hello to everyone who hasn't subscribed yet. If you haven't yet, I recommend you to do it because I'm not just discussing Siemens NX secrets and dirty tricks, I'm also discussing all the enhancements with the new version, and I have decided to create all my tutorials with this brand new version because in my opinion it's the best release ever. I really enjoy every update and every new release of the software, and I am really installing the first day of release usually, and I'm also beta testing, but this one is so brilliant. If after installing you have a first look, you can see we have a new icon, and in my opinion it's worth having a new icon because this software is different to everything I've seen before. However, today I'm not gonna go into detail too much. I'm just gonna do a little review of the new Sketcher, which I do really enjoy. And just a little story behind. I was beta testing and my first impression was, I'm never gonna use that. And if I had the chance not to use it, I'm not gonna use it. And the reason was, for my first impression, for my first mentioning, I was just unable to use it because I didn't have a training yet. So I spent a couple of hours. I didn't watch any of these videos out there. And I was not participating in the beta at 100%, so I didn't have time to participate the discussions about it. So I had to spend a couple of hours to catch up and to learn a new Sketcher. And after a while, I found out there is really nothing which you have to miss. Everything is there, and there's so many enhancements. It allows you to increase your productivity that much. So I recommend everyone to use it. The new Sketcher solver, that's what it's all about in this video. But before I'm gonna start sketching, just have a look at our What's New tab. What's new since NX1899 in design. Usually if you have a look at this list, you find out there aren't so many things concerning your needs, but in this case, 1926, everything you can find below NX design is useful for everyone. And that's the reason why I really recommend and expect everyone to use this version or even a newer version of Siemens NX. I'm not gonna go into this detail, but I'm gonna highlight all the renewals. And if you ask yourself now, can I learn from this YouTube channel? Yes, you can, but it's not a replacement for a training. We have created the overall NX1926 training already starting from Sunday, I guess, when it was released this week. And the reason why I recommend everyone to visit the training instead of using YouTube and search and communities, however, is you save so much time. I spent so much time on learning the sketch just because I was doing it on my own completely, and nobody told me that it's the best thing to be used. I talked already about my first impression, and you can save all this time. Training is not that expensive, so spend your time in training and save time and start using this software as a pro and not as a noob. Let's create a new file and have a first look into Siemens NX 1926. You can see all the highlights on your ribbon bar. It's a sketch, it's extrude, which is interesting, hole is interesting, subtract is interesting, pattern is interesting. So cool. Even in the assembly we have some enhancements which are so comfortable to be used. But today I'm gonna focus on the new sketch. And it's cool if you start the sketch the first time after installation, and this is really the first time, however, you can see it's the old layout and the old kind of way using the sketch. So you won't find the new solver and all the commands out there. The reason is not because you shouldn't use it. The reason is if you have old parts, and all of us have old parts, and you open the old parts and double click a sketch, it has to be converted first of all. So that's the main reason why we always start with the old sketch layout, and everyone can decide whether to use the new solver or not. But I recommend you to do it. And what you gotta do to use it is you have to enable a feature below Home Utilities, Feature Toggles, and there's a search function so you don't have to search manually. It's here, the new sketch solver. Just right click and turn it on. That's it. To show you the sketch, I'm going to create an internal sketch within my extrude, because afterwards I'm going to show you some enhancements within the extrude as well. And the first impression here is that you don't have a coordinate system. We just have a horizontal and vertical reference, which is pretty cool, because if you, for example, move to this position, you usually did not have access to your Y or X origin. And we do have it now because there is no length limitation here. The profile starts as usual. To start a new command, just select the new command, of course, and there is really no need to modify these line creation commands. And I really appreciate that, to have some things which are common within the sketch, because the rest, which you can see here, is completely redesigned. My first impression when starting the sketch dialog within the beta testing was there are a lot of things that I miss, like automatic dimensions and relation browsers, however, and it's even less commands than before, but it's limited to your needs. So there is really nothing. I found out after a while, and you will find out when having a training, there is nothing you have to miss. It's just limited to your needs, and it's much more comfortable and faster to work with the new sketch solver. For this exercise, I'm just going to start as usual. I'm going to draw a rectangle for my origin, and you can directly, as usually, define your dimensions like this and just select one of your quadrants. And what you see here is it's colored. So when a region is closed, like this one of the rectangle, it's going to be colored, which is pretty cool because it gives me the information of whether I have a closed profile or not. But this is some kind of setting you can do below Task and Sketch Setting. It is called Display Shaded Region, and it's right now enabled, or however disabled. Is my sketch fully constrained? I don't see any constraints. Yes, it is. You can see below here, sketch is fully defined, and you can imagine now we don't have constraints displayed, which is, well, it's not very something you're not common with. So I was missing my constraint icons, but it's not necessary anymore. Constraint icons are displayed in the case of selecting a related object. You can see we have some relations like horizontal, vertical, and what is this? It's collinear. We have a collinear constraint here, which is inferred by Siemens NX, because as you did see, I was selecting this origin. And this is something which the solver is doing very good. It's inferring constraints, and you do not really recognize it. So it's really comfortable to work like this, just focusing on lines and dimensions. There is something I don't like, but it's easy to adjust. If I delete one of my dimensions, you can see Show Movable is enabled, and I have missing constraints or dimensions. Sketch is just partially defined. I don't like the contrast here, and this is not the default color, but you can adjust it easily. Below Task, Sketch Preferences, you can see there is a color for movable curves, which is usually dark brown, and if it's dark brown, as you can see, it's really hard to figure out the contrast and movables or non-movables. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to create some contrast by using this deep yellow color, and make sure you don't use a color which is already listed in here. And now I have a contrast and an information of my missing constraints. And to figure out whether something is movable, just drag and drop it. So easy to do that. So it's not selected, just select it and drag and drop it. That's it. Nothing else you have to do. What can we do now? Of course, it's, well, we have equal side lengths. Why not? Selecting our curves as usual, and we got the constraint listed upon here, but it's different than before. We have all of them listed, and by just the highlight of the symbol and information of whether something is possible or not. The first impression of mine was I'm missing constraints, but the reason is I had no training yet, because if I had a training, they would have told me that make equal right now, for example, is used in terms of selecting lines or arcs. So it can be equal arc length as well, which is pretty cool and pretty comfortable. And I was expecting this modification for years. Equal arc length and equal length has to be the same icon, and now it is. And if you think about enhancements during the last years, like for example horizontal alignment of points, you might miss it right now, but you can imagine that horizontal and vertical can be used for lines as well as points. And This is something I'd like to show you. If you want to select a point, you just have to wait a few milliseconds and select the point. Just move your mouse to the point you want to select like this, select it, and now we have a few options upon here. We got the make horizontal, of course, and it's horizontal right now. And if you don't want it to be horizontal, no problem. You don't even have to select the constraints. If you select the line, you can see there is a horizontal relation, but you don't have to select it. Just select your point and shake 3 times and the relation is broken. This is what they call shake and break. And it's so easy to create this relation again like this. Now we are horizontal again. So even the use of these constraints is not necessary in every case. You can do so many things by just drag and drop. And one thing that I really missed was point on curve. And I'm just gonna break it. Just shake it 3 times like this. And I'm gonna move this to this position. So this line is horizontal right now. It seems to be horizontal. And I was missing point on curve, but it's there. Just select a point and just select a curve. And what you see here is make coincident. And you just have to enable your brain. Coincident between a point and a line is not, well, it must be point on curve. And right now we have point on curve. And if you select your curve, you can see the point on curve icon, but it's not displayed when the related curve is not selected. Everything we need is there, and that's so cool. What I'm gonna do next, I'm gonna draw a circle because I want to show you some kind of NX secret, something which is not new. And I really missed my constraint tool. Well, I recommended everyone not to use it for standard constraints, but if you have multiple tangent constraints, for example, and you want to collect several curves, it was necessary to do it. So I was searching for an alternate solution and I found something. If you create a relation between an arc and a line, I mean a tangent relation, and if you want to have several tangent relations, just select your arc and line again and hit the F4 button. F4 button is a redo command, so it redoes the last command you have used. Just hit F4 and it's so fast, it's so comfortable. You just have to select one of these curves additionally, but it saves time. Think about using F4 even in such use cases. My sketch now is fully defined. If you have, for example, some kind of over-constraint situation, therefore I'm going to delete this one and I'm going to create a dimension. And it's so easy. If you want to create a dimension related to this line, just select it. And if you want to create a dimension between this line and this line, just select them. And NX will offer you a dimension. And you really just have to left click to create this. So there is even no, if the value is fine, just left click in the blank area and it will be created. But it's one thing, one problem we have right now, because we have equal length in here. So what can we do? If you want to modify it, just double click it as usual. But you cannot modify it, and the reason is that we have a lot of constraints here. What did we do in the past? We deleted the over constraints, the constraints which are causing this kind of problem. But what you can do now is just to relax relations. Double click and now you can move it. Isn't that cool? The relations are still there, but just because you haven't finished it. If you have finished by just a left click, the relations are deleted. They are overwritten, they're gone. And my sketch is fully defined. So over-constraining is not a real problem right now. And we can do it the other way around as well. You can relax dimensions as well. So, for example, if you create a constraint like this and use equal length, there is a mistake, there's an alert. So mistakes can't happen. There's no over-constraining possible. What you can do, you can relax this dimension and or any other related dimension and select make equal, and you can see the dimension is recalculated. Sketch is still fully defined. And the other way around as well, as I did show you before. Of course, there are slightly more things to be discussed to be able to use the new sketcher, but I think, in my opinion, it just makes sense to start with a little impression, and I hope you're satisfied. If you missed something, if you want me to show you something, which you are missing, or you have an idea of a possible problem, let me know in the comments below, and maybe I'm gonna do another video concerning this. I'm gonna finish the sketch because that's it for today and show you a very cool enhancement within the extrude. Because if you have a symmetric value, in the past we always had to calculate. So if wall thickness here was 1, we had to use 0.5. But today we are talking about the overall value here. So you no more have to calculate. Something else we have in here, if you switch to value and you start from maybe 10 and end at 20, what do we have here? We have a distance from here to here of 10 and a distance from here to here of 20. So also here we had to calculate, but today we're able to define a value from start limit. So if the thickness here is 10, define 10. A start limit is this limitation, is this value here. That's where we start from. So also here you don't have to calculate on your own. It's just some little improvements, but it's something every one of you might use, and it's going on within hold, etc, etc. I'm gonna do further tutorials concerning Siemens NX1926, so I'm gonna do further reviews, but I'm also gonna use it for any other kind of YouTube tutorial on this channel. If you're interested in seeing more, subscribe. If you have any issues, let me know in the comments below. That's it for today. I wish you a nice weekend. Bye.